How dare the UFC do this? How dare the UFC do this to Alexander Volkanovski? This is just so foul, man. It is so foul. A guy that has been an unbelievable champion for the UFC, an unbelievable ambassador of the sport, beloved by the fan base, one of the greatest fighters of all time in Alexander Volkanovski. They're taking an aging Volk and locking him back in an octagon for 25 minutes with the most dangerous featherweight on planet Earth once again. It's foul. It's just foul. And I'm worried for Volkanovski, man. I'm very, very worried for Volk in this fight. And I completely understand that Volkanovski went out there and 49-46 Diego Lopes. Whooped him. Beat him to the punch. Took him to school. Jabbing and moving around. And vintage Volk sticking and moving. And all those kinds of things. And while I don't think that Volkanovski is in his prime anymore, still moves really well. Still very fast. Still got some thud. Still got some pop. But he got hurt badly by Diego Lopes the first time around. And Diego Lopes is 31. He's popular. He's a super entertaining fighter to watch. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Diego Lopes, man. It's nothing against Diego. It's just we see what's going on here. We had guys that were deserving of a title opportunity, and the UFC said no. And to be fair, I mean, those guys aren't massive personalities, and we see the route that the UFC is going now. And Diego Lopes is coming off of a crazy KO back at Noche UFC over Jean Silva. Super hyped up, dangerous guy in the featherweight division. It was a crazy back and forth fight. And Diego Lopes ends up getting a spinning elbow KO in round 2. It was nasty. No question about it. But the last time we saw Volkanovski fight was at UFC 314, and that was for the vacant featherweight title because Ilya moved up. And who was that fight against? It was against Diego Lopes. Why is this fight happening? Why is it happening? Well, we know why it's happening. Yeah, it's a banger fight, and that's the pitch. And yes, it is a banger fight. I don't want people to misunderstand. This is a great fight. It's a banger. But it's not the fight that should be happening, in my opinion. Nobody asked for this fight. Nobody asked for this fight. And we know with the UFC moving into Paramount, we know their objective now. They're going for the ratings, the views, the popularity. I get the game, man. I get the business angle. But this is Volk we're talking about here. A legend, the greatest featherweight of all time. And you're putting him back in there with, like I said, who I think is the most dangerous featherweight now that Ilya is at lightweight. Diego Lopes is unbelievably dangerous, man. And we're just banking on Volkanovski to go in there and stick and move and pick apart Diego Lopes for another 25 minutes. It's very possible. If anybody could go out there and do it, it's definitely Volkanovski. He's been away for a year. He's going to come back in there against Diego Lopes, who just fought, is gaining confidence, and let alone, I mean, he's got a nice mustache going on. So this is a confident Diego Lopes that I believe is going to learn a lot from the first fight. And that scares the shit out of me for Volkanovski. It just does. Because Volkanovski's got some bad habits that still follow him throughout his entire career. And I say this all the time about fighters, guys. Look, we see fighters where when they get KO'd or they lose and, their chin was in the air or their hands weren't up. Of course they go back to the drawing board. In the training room, they're working on keeping their hands up, making these adjustments. But there's certain tendencies that no matter how hard you try, they tend to just kind of pop up as a weakness throughout your entire career. It's just what we see a lot of the time. And Alexander Volkanovski, while he still moves really well, it's not prime Volkanovski. He doesn't do a good job dealing with leg kicks. He fades back out of range with his hand down, with his chin up in the air, the whole side of his head exposed, which is why he got knocked out by Islam Makhachev, got set up with a beautiful high kick, right? His hand was down, got clipped up along the side of his head, right? And then Ilya Topuria marching him down, putting on a nice little boxing masterclass, closing the distance, boom, crazy right hand knocks him out. And then back-to-back KOs, bounces back, and beats up on Diego Lopes, but he got hurt really bad in the fight. He did. And he's going to have to go in there and basically be perfect again for 25 minutes against Diego. And I feel like Diego's going to learn a lot from the first fight. A lot from the first fight. One of the big problems that we see with a lot of fighters that the UFC is hyping up, right? They give them some fights, they throw them into the limelight, and when they get kind of catapulted to the top, a lot of the times they don't get a 5-round fight in the UFC before fighting for the title. And that was Diego Lopes was one of those cases. Goes in there for 20, he's got a 25-minute fight, locked in there against an all-time great in Volkanovski, and sometimes you feel the moment, but one of the big things that we see is these fast starters like Diego that just pounce on you right away. They want to pounce on you, right? They want to get in your face. They don't want you to feel the canvas, and they want to overwhelm you and try to get you out of there. That's how Diego fights. We didn't really see that in the first fight against Volkanovski. One, because Volk's a good fighter, and I think he respected his skills tremendously, but also he knew what? He has 25 minutes here. This isn't a 15-minute fight. It's 25 minutes, and we saw Diego kind of fight quite a bit different than he did the first time around. And now that he's got back-to-back fights that are scheduled 25-minute fights, now coming into this one, I think that we are going to see a lot more aggression from Diego Lopes. And one of the big critiques that I've had for Diego, doesn't move his head. His defense isn't very good, relies on that high guard, just glues the hands to the side of his face, pressures forward. He doesn't have very good footwork on the offensive side of things, right? He kind of cuts to the left, cuts to the right, follows guys around, which is what was allowing Volkanovski to move so well. And if you watch how Ilia Topuria broke down Volkanovski, what did he do? He attacked the base of Volkanovski, took out the lead leg, and then slowly backed him down and methodically cut him off, pinned him up against the octagon side, and then let his hands go and knocked him out. I just really feel like while Diego Lopes, no, he is not Ilia Topuria. Not even close when it comes to the boxing. But Diego Lopes is a big, strong featherweight with thunderous power. And all it takes is one. It almost happened in the first fight. And when you're the guy that, while Volkanovski does have some good thud, he does have some good sting, when's the last time Volkanovski's really put somebody out cold? It just doesn't really happen. It's an accumulation of damage. Ground and pound. I mean, Volk's got some nasty ground and pound. He's got some sting. We saw him landing some big shots on Diego in the first fight. But Diego's got a granite chin. He's got a granite chin, and Diego Lopes' jiu-jitsu is elite. It's absolutely elite. So if this fight does go to the floor, I don't imagine it stays there. What's Volk going to hang out in his guard, posture up, and try to rain down ground and pound and expose himself to Diego trying to go for a submission, try to grab a leg, trying to lock in a triangle? Right? We saw Brian Ortega put Volkanovski in some trouble on the ground. So if things go south for Volkanovski on the feet, it's not like he could just take Diego down and control him on the ground and win the fight that way. This isn't a Yair Rodriguez. Diego Lopes is unbelievably dangerous, man. And the fact that Volkanovski went in there for 25 minutes with him the first time, survived getting hurt really badly, and going out there and absolutely schooling him to win 49-46 across all scorecards is beyond impressive. It is. But now here we are a year later, 37-year-old Volkanovski, not in his prime anymore, still moves really well. And Diego Lopes is dangerous. And I feel like Diego Lopes is going to learn a lot from the first fight. As is Volkanovski, going to understand what? Not pulling his chin out of range, right? And these are mistakes that continuously pop up with Volk. I was hoping that he would correct these things, man. And they tend, when guys extend the boxing combinations and they get to Volkanovski and he just backs out of range like that, he gets clipped and he gets hurt badly. And I'm just super worried for him, man. I'm very, very worried in this fight because you have 25 minutes, and Diego Lopes, like I said, I think he's going to attack the lead leg of Volkanovski. He's going to be a lot more aggressive. And he knows after hurting him in the first fight, all I got to do is land. All I got to do is go. Volkanovski didn't knock me out, so all I got to do is move forward, be willing to take one to give one. And I just feel like Diego Lopes having more experience under his belt coming into this fight, he's just going to be a different dude. And I expect Volk to make some adjustments, right? Because it's all easier said than done. Volkanovski is one of the greatest fighters of all time. The GOAT featherweight. His movement is incredible. His rhythm, his timing, his boxing, his kicking game, right? And he's he's a stout, low center of gravity ball of muscle that is a hard guy to deal with. And he's a high IQ fighter. We all know that about Volkanovski. But it's just one of those things once you lose just a little bit of the step. Well, I don't think it's a ton as much as people say. Volkanovski has to go in there and be perfect again for 25 minutes. For 25 minutes. So a total of 50 minutes with the most dangerous featherweight we have right now in Diego Lopes. He's got to be perfect once again. Once again. And I do think Alexander Volkanovski is the better fighter. I still think he's faster. I think he's got better overall striking, better kicks. He's the better overall fighter than Diego Lopes. It's the fact that Diego is younger and he hits hard as hell and he's very dangerous and he's got a nasty submission game. So if anything goes south on the feet, I don't know that Volkanovski has a lot of success on the ground because of how good Diego is off of his back, how good and how much of a wizard Diego is with the jiu-jitsu game on the floor, man. He's dangerous. He's an all-around, very, very dangerous fighter. That's why I say he reminds me of Charles. He can hurt you on the feet. He's got crazy power. And then if the fight hits the floor, you're dealing with a very dangerous submission ace. And now Volkanovski's locked in there again with him for 25 minutes. I know it's in Sydney, Australia. UFC 325, big spotlight. Another title defense opportunity here for Volkanovski. If Volkanovski can go out there and beat Diego Lopes once again, I got to be honest, man, this might be the greatest win of his entire career. I know he's had some great ones, right? Beating Max Holloway 3 times, right? All the amazing things that Volkanovski has been able to do in his career. Him beating and in his prime Diego Lopes, who, like I said, is the most dangerous featherweight, in my opinion, in the world right now. If he goes out here in this rematch that nobody asked for, and he beats him again and dominates him, I think it would probably be the most impressive thing Volkanovski has done. Given that he's older in his career, how dangerous Diego is, I'm worried for Volkanovski, man. I'm worried for Volkanovski because these habits that we've been waiting to see corrected, where he's not pulling his chin up in the air when he exits range, when he's not backing up, with his head on a platter, it worries me. If Diego's hurting you in the first fight, isn't he going to be able to do the same thing in this one? Volkanovski, he's got good power, but it's not this one-hitter-quitter power, man. It's accumulation of damage. And Diego's got a granite chin, so you can't rely on Volkanovski just putting him away. And Diego's already been in there with Volkanovski. He dealt with the mystique of, I'm in there with this legend, Alexander Volkanovski, the movement, the speed, all those different things. He's been in there and done that for 25 minutes. Then you go out there and KO a hyped-up Jean Silva, who's incredibly dangerous, who, in my opinion, probably hits harder than Volkanovski. And you go out there, you eat Silva's shots after already been in there for 25 minutes with Volkanovski. Do we really think that Volkanovski can be better than what he was that night against Diego Lopes at 314? Maybe. But I'm just not so sure. It's been a year. Diego Lopes has been more active. And this, to me, just feels like one of those fights where the UFC is sitting back going, Diego Lopes is very popular. He's a guy we can market. He's a guy that we can promote. Volkanovski's been an OG. He's been around for a while. But the future of the division is in better hands if Diego Lopes is the champion. That's the vibe I get from the UFC here. That's the vibe that I get. And like I said, I understand, the argument of, well, what was it going to be? Aljo, Lerone, Mobstar? I mean, I would favor Diego Lopes to beat all those guys. So off that logic, sure, then it makes sense in that way. But in my opinion, there were guys that were more deserving of getting the title shot right now. Undefeated fighters on crazy long win streaks. Diego was just in there with Volkanovski. It just feels that way to me, man. This is a super dangerous fight. Volk being locked in there for another 25 minutes with, like I said, the most dangerous featherweight in the entire world. I'm worried for Volk. He's going to have to stick and move. He's going to have to beat Diego to the punch. Going to have to gain his respect. Going to have to hurt him again to try to slow down the onslaught that Diego brings. Because like I said, I think Diego is going to have less respect for Volkanovski in this fight. I think that he's going to come after him. I think he's going to be more aggressive early, knowing that, well, last time I had this patient approach, I showed him a ton of respect. But if I do that again, I'm just going to get picked apart and lose another decision. I'm going to let him get so far ahead that I'm not going to be able to catch up, and I'm just going to be banking on a KO shot late in the fight. So I think we're going to see an aggressive Diego. I think he's going to attack the lead leg of Volkanovski. I think he's going to look to march him down. And like I said, the big weakness of Diego Lopes, his defense isn't very good. So he's easy to hit, but he's durable as hell. But he doesn't use great footwork to cut off the octagon. So he allows Volkanovski to escape very, very easily. So my early prediction, I do think that Volkanovski can go out there and pull this one off once again. I think that he can pull a rabbit out of his ass again and find a way to get this one done, man. I really, really do. But I expect Diego to be a lot more aggressive this time around. He's got the mustache. He's got the confidence, right? This is just a scary fight. It's a scary, scary fight. And I feel like we all know why this was booked. And I just want to see Volkanovski shove it to the UFC, man. I want to see him shove it. I want to see him go out there. I want to see him put on a masterclass. And like I said, Diego Lopes, he's someone that the UFC is pushing. If he loses to Volk again, when Volkanovski's out of the picture because he retires or whatever happens, I feel like Diego will fight for the belt again at some point. I think he will. So this isn't like the end for Diego Lopes. But if Diego goes out there and KOs Volkanovski, where does Volk go from here? Where does he go from here? And it just feels like the UFC has always had this mentality of we want someone better to represent the featherweight division. It really just feels like that. That's why they gave Max, a third chance. And I get that there wasn't a whole lot left in the division. It just feels like the UFC's always been trying to get Volk up out of there. Am I crazy for thinking that? It just feels that way. It feels like they have never fully gotten behind Alexander Volkanovski is the vibe that I've gotten. So at the end of the day, it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be a banger. The first one was a great fight. Volkanovski, he's the smarter fighter. He's a more technical fighter. He's got more tools on the feet. But it just comes down to the fact that Diego is a big, strong guy. He's got thunderous power. He's improving time in and time out. When he throws crazy spinning back elbows. Imagine if he gets in the pocket and he's slugging with Volkanovski and he throws one of those spinning elbows and it lands on Volk, man. That would be absolutely devastating for the MMA world. Like, it would be great in the way that, Diego Lopes, like I said, I'm a big Diego fan. I feel like a lot of us are fans of Diego Lopes. He's awesome. He's a great fighter. But this is just one of those bitter things that happens in the UFC whenever they feed the OG to a younger guy when they're trying to have him win the belt, make a name off of him. This is just foul, man. It's foul. Worried for Volkanovski. I think he could get it done. That's my early prediction. I think Volkanovski could go out there, put on a similar kind of performance, but it is going to get hairy in certain moments because we know the power of Diego's for real. I think he's going to land some big shots, but I think Volkanovski finds a way to make this thing work, man, because while I think Diego makes adjustments and he's gotten better, Volk makes good adjustments as well. And the big thing that leaves me that hope is while I think Volkanovski's chin, it's kind of gone in a way. It's kind of gone in a way. I know that he's been hit by Ilya and Islam Makhachev, which are hard hitters and great fighters and two of the best guys in the entire world. I don't think Diego is on their level. But he has the power, he has the danger factor, but the fact that he does not cut the cage off very well, I think that bodes well for Volkanovski to allow him to escape, allow him to get on his bike, stick and move, play that game, and utilize his speed to outscore Diego Lopes and win another decision. I hope Volk puts on a masterclass once again. Like I said, I got love for Diego Lopes, but this whole thing, it just feels very foul to me.